Way before any European ships even thought about crossing the Atlantic, there was this bustling metropolis right here in North America. We're talking a city of giant pyramids, huge open plazas, a place that could go toe-to-toe with the great capitals of the world at the time. But here's the crazy part. Today, almost nobody knows its name. So today, we're going to dig in and uncover the incredible story of this lost city.
Okay, so to really get a feel for this place, we need to rewind the clock. A lot. Picture this. The year is 1100 AD. So in Europe, you've got the height of the Middle Ages, right? But more importantly, this is a full 400 years, 4 centuries, before Columbus even sets sail. This is the world we're stepping into.
And this is what really blows my mind. So back in 1100 AD, London, right, a major player in Europe, it had a population of about 15,000 people. But get this, at the exact same time, across the ocean, deep in the heart of what we now call the United States, there was a city with around 20,000 people. And that's just the city proper, not even counting all the suburbs around it. It was bigger than London. Let that sink in for a second.
So what was this mystery metropolis? It was called Cahokia, and the wildest part is where its ruins are. You might be picturing some remote, hard-to-reach jungle, right? Nope. They're literally just across the Mississippi River from modern-day St. Louis, Missouri. It's been hiding in plain sight this whole time.
And this, of course, brings us to the 2 giant mysteries that have kept archaeologists busy for decades. First, who on earth were these master builders and city planners? Who pulled off this incredible achievement? And then, the even bigger puzzle, where did they all go? Why did they just vanish and let this amazing city get swallowed up by the earth?
All right, so let's tackle that first question. Who built it? To do that, we need to meet the architects of Cahokia. They weren't just one tribe, they were part of a huge, incredibly sophisticated culture that we now call the Mississippian people.
Now, don't picture scattered nomadic tribes. No, the Mississippians were true innovators. I mean, they were masters of farming maize, corn, which is how you feed a massive city population. They were incredible engineers building these enormous earthen mounds. Their trade network stretched for hundreds of miles, and they had these really distinct art styles. All of this tells you one thing. This was a super organized, very complex society. So, how exactly were they organized? Well, Cahokia was probably the capital of a powerful chiefdom. And what that means is you have a really clear social ladder. At the very top, you've got a paramount chief who is kind of like a king and high priest all rolled into one. Below him, you'd have the elite families and other priests, and then you'd have the commoners and farmers, the people who are the real backbone of the city.
Okay, so now that we've met the builders, let's explore what they actually built. Come on, let's take a little walk through the bustling streets of Cahokia when it was at the absolute height of its power.
On our little tour, we're going to check out 3 absolutely incredible features right in the heart of the city. The gigantic structure they call Monk's Mound, the massive Grand Plaza, and these really mysterious wooden circles known as the Whithenges.
First stop, the absolute centerpiece of the city. Now this isn't just a big hill. It is a man-made, 4-level earthen pyramid that must have taken generations of people hauling basket after basket of dirt to build. And just to give you a sense of scale, its base is bigger than the Great Pyramid of Giza in Egypt, yeah. And right on top of this massive thing, there would have been a huge building, probably where the paramount chief lived, looking out over his entire city.
Right at the foot of Monk's Mound, this huge open space spreads out. This was the Grand Plaza. Try to picture it. A perfectly leveled public square covering 40 acres. I mean, this was the beating heart of the city. This is where you'd have massive public ceremonies, bustling markets with goods traded from as far away as the Gulf Coast, huge festivals, games, everything happened here.
And then, around the edges of this giant plaza, you find these really cool structures. They're called the Whithenges, and they were these huge circles made of big, evenly spaced wooden posts. But they weren't just some kind of fence. No, they were basically sophisticated astronomical observatories. By watching how the sun rose and aligned with certain posts, the city's priests could perfectly track the seasons, the solstices and equinoxes, which was absolutely crucial for knowing when to plant crops and for their religious ceremonies.
So for more than 300 years, Cahokia was the place to be. It was a center of culture, power, and new ideas. And then it just emptied out. By the year 1350, this great city was pretty much a ghost town. And that brings us to that second huge mystery. Why?
Now, there's no single smoking gun here, but archaeologists have a few leading theories. One is a classic case of environmental collapse. Think about it. To support 20,000 people, you have to cut down a lot of trees for firewood and buildings. That could have easily led to soil erosion and flooding, which would have been disastrous for their crops. Another big possibility is disease. Anytime you pack that many people into one city, you're a sitting duck for epidemics. And finally, there are signs of conflict. Later in its life, the city built these huge defensive walls, which kind of suggests they were worried about attacks, either from outsiders or maybe even from riots inside the city itself.
But the most likely answer is that it wasn't just one of these things. It was probably all of them, hitting one after another like a terrible domino effect. You know, a long drought puts pressure on the food supply, which leads to social unrest and fighting over resources, and all that stress makes people more likely to get sick. It was likely a cascade of interconnected problems where one disaster just fueled the next, until the whole system just broke.
So the great city went quiet. But that's not where the story ends, not by a long shot, because the people of Cahokia and their culture left a permanent mark on this continent.
And here's a really key point. The people didn't just disappear into thin air. They moved. They migrated out in smaller groups, and their descendants went on to become part of many of the Native American nations that exist today, tribes like the Osage, the Ponca, and the Quapaw. They took the culture, the beliefs, and the stories of their great city with them.
And that right there is why the story of Cahokia is so important. It completely shatters that old, simplistic idea that North America was just this vast, empty wilderness before Columbus showed up. It's proof, hard proof, that this continent was home to incredibly complex urban societies that were absolute leaders in engineering, astronomy, and social organization. They were, in many ways, just as advanced as anyone else in the world at that time. You know, when you learn about Cahokia, it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? If a city this massive, this important, could be lost and forgotten for centuries, lying just under the soil in the American Midwest, what other incredible stories, what other lost cities are still out there, just waiting to be rediscovered?